Hello, hello. How is everybody doing today? Hope the volume is good and you can hear. For any of y'all that just joined, if you guys could do me a favor and let me know if you can see everything, how's the volume, if you can hear me, and everything, I'd appreciate the feedback. Thank you. So what we're looking at first here is we're looking at the S&P 500 micro. Just looking at some of the aspects. When we look at it on a larger time frame, okay, we can see here back from 2020 January, but let's kind of look more locally here. Kind of want to see what's been happening on the weekly. So we had a nice low range retest, swing of highs. We held lows, then achieved. Believe if we look here, yes, I think we did just barely achieve here. So the high was 4743, 4740 up. We had a nice deep retest. So this is the area I kind of want to look at here. So we want to look at the lowest point here. I like to always invert as well so we can kind of see. So this is the lowest point here. Okay. So technically, this was like the really the lowest point right here. So I'm kind of just like ranging out, like we're looking at price action here, because what we're really looking at is we're looking at the low that created the high. So then once that was achieved, then you can see that we retested it, support now turned resistance, and then popped off, right? So now what we want to do is just looking at this very briefly. Let's go ahead and look at the secondary retest. And as you can see on the secondary retest, we tested it, and this time we even tried to come up to the point of failure. We did not. So now what we want to do is we want to look where we're at now. So it did look like it held it. I still think we could potentially come down a bit lower. This is a pretty nice test here. So let's go ahead and come down to the lower time frames. All right, so we can see on the London Open today, they did some buying. London closed, taking profits. See what type of move they got. About a 1%er. 62. Swing test. All right, so we held the swing test pretty nicely here as a support, which is nice. You don't want to see that loss because, like, from this origin off the achievement, we had a nice little swing test here as well. So this is a very key resistance line that's now turned support. Hey, can somebody type something in the chat because I'm not seeing um, the chat right now. So I mean, if somebody's typing, can somebody just say one thing just to make sure if I'm seeing it correctly? I'd appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you, Velvet. I see that. Awesome. Appreciate it. All right. So now that we've identified this as the key resistance point, and you can see that we had a nice little pop off. So from this range, you can see that we had a nice little high range retest on like the, let's see, even on the 4 hour. Okay, on the 4 hour, it doesn't look as clean. Let's see on the hourly here. So we had a nice little high range retest of the high that created the low. So now we're looking at what's the trade that we want to look for tomorrow, right? So basically, anywhere within this range is what I'm looking for a nice R&R. And then just having like a tight stop literally right here. And looking for upside continuation, not like upside continuation, but just some sort of upside reach, right? So let's look on the 4 hour here, and let's see. This range up here is what I'd be looking for and targeting. So let's see what type of percentage move that would be. 2%er, 118. Looking for a 4 hour, maybe a daily swing high retest. So the daily is actually all the way up here, which would potentially make sense. I mean, we do see a double top here, but you have to realize until proven otherwise, you want to continually look for longs until proven otherwise. And as of right now, even though we did have some failure in breaking back into this, you can see that we never really lost this origin and the point of failure to the downside. So it looks okay. What you also want to notice is when we look at like the low that created the high over here. So even though we did swing this, and basically you could just have this as your swing test that is more important than this, because a very basic strategy that we have, right? So we have origin, swing test, point of failure, right? So here's your origin, there's your swing test, there's your point of failure. So by holding this, it's exactly what we wanted to see happen. So it looks good. We have achievement to the upside. We did break down pretty significantly. Basically what I would do is off of this range that we just talked about, if we see price flip this, then get out of longs. Oh yeah, volume is crazy right now for sure. And look to short it, and then actually look for a potential break of structure. I think the probability is pretty likely that if we swing this low here, and that we will be swinging both of these. So then, what would we be looking for on the low end side? We'd be looking for the low range test, because we already tested the high range test right here, right? So we'd be looking for this right here for the short. Everyone right now is in this like, okay, so when you look at like market cycles and you study them, right? You got the trough, and then you have like the like, I guess you call it the flare out or the top range phase. There is no time limit on it. So even though like this Omicron variant and all this, it's really a lot of just fugazi. Don't listen to the fear. Just look at price action and just play it based off of that. But yeah, this is what I'm looking for longs right now on this. And then obviously taking aggressive PTs on the way up. If we're looking at TP ranges, swing of high, or even at the middle of it, secondary swing right around there. Take this swing here, and then from there we'll look for this one for our final TP. This is the S&P 500 Micro Mini. So I mean, we can look at. I like to look at this one or the March one. So the only differences between the one that I'm showing you and this one is this one only has data up to a certain point. So these are the top indexes, right? We got the S&P 500, the NQ, Dow Jones Industrial, and then the Russell. So these are the top ones to look at on the micro. We can go ahead and take a look at either one of these. I think we'll go ahead and now and look at gold. So this is like kind of the gold play that we had. on the stream that I did, I think in October on Xtrades. So right now we're, you know, in a good long, had a nice, actually deep retest. This was kind of what I was expecting to happen. I guess with this like end of the year, taxes and potentially bad news or whatever, it did cause it to dip a little bit, but it looks like we're back on track. Still looking for these targets here. Now, if we look on a higher time frame, looks really good. We held the 0.618 very nicely, and that was a real deep retest there in August. But we did not achieve lows, which is a good sign. So we did just locally have achievement here. Off of this low hold where we had a swing and then we came down and retested, we did have achievement. So now we wanted to see a hold of the low range, which we did see. So if we were to zoom in right here, the low that created the high and the point of failure and the origin point, this is really near to the origin point here. But yeah, gold still looks really good. I think this will probably, if I had to guess, within the next year, will probably make new highs. So gold is one of those things where it's more of a longer term play. But it looks good on this high range for sure. Because like if you look at this like first swing high retest off of this original point of failure that had this, back in 2011. Okay, guys. So even though this does matter, this does not matter as much as this. So the things with price action is what happened most recently matters more than what happened over here. But that doesn't mean that it has no value. So this first swing high retest off of the the failure, you can see that for the most part, the median price was to get above this at all times, right? So we look how the closes are. We got one close beneath it, two close beneath it, and then like battled up to get above it. And really, the real point of failure is right here, actually. Then there was like a indecision, a little bit of a flare out. But you can see the real point of failure. We held above it for the most part. So yeah, gold looks good, guys. By the way, if you guys have any tickers or anything that you want me to look at, any stocks or anything, I'm just looking at the top indexes. The top, some of the top commodities, and then the top volume stocks, and maybe even might check out a little bit of Bitcoin. All right, looking at silver. Silver has been looking really good. A lot of silver haters out there. Swing, point of failure. All right, so when we're looking at silver, like what we were just talking about earlier, remember about the origin, the swing. So you guys can see me talk about this all the time, but basically it's the path: origin, swing, point of failure. Okay, so it's like a basic price action movement. So, and it works in both directions. So when we invert the scale, let's do the same thing here. So origin, why is this the origin? Because this is the low that created this high. So when we retested this low and we achieved, it is a sign of weakness, and that in the future, it's potential that we are going to break. And you can see that we accumulated, previously used a support as resistance, and then failed. So now this is our origin range. Now we have our swing test range, which is here, and now we have our point of failure. Notice how the point of failure range, even though we did swing it, and we even had a deep swing here, we had a close above the point of failure, or right at point of failure for the most part. So what you want to look for is now reinverting, now that we've seen that, because you want to see price, if for the uptrend scenario or for the downtrend scenario, you want to see price be beneath this, and you want to see this hold as support for a downtrend scenario. And as you can see, we had a monthly close above, monthly close above. So we are showing some strength that the downtrend is now invalidated. So now the question is the same thing that we saw here, where it kind of does this until the breakdown is kind of happening here. So what this is here, here's our origin, here's our swing test, and what happens after the swing test? A point of failure, right? So now the question is the point of failure going to be here? Are we going to swing high slightly? You know, because silver already broke all-time highs. I guess that was in 2011. Wow. Yeah, we're looking at the monthly here. But yeah, silver looks good. I mean, now we can like zoom in a bit. Let's go ahead and look in more closely. Take a gander on like the hourly here. So yeah, the silver play from October worked out very nicely. Came literally right to the point of failure that we were looking for. Play played out perfectly. Had a nice deep retest. Did we actually get achievement on the hourly here? I think we did. Yeah, I mean, it looks like we did, or just about not. That was a nice deep retest. So it's basically the same play that happened again. It just became valid again, which is really cool. The 0.618 retest here, very nice, and then pop off. So let's look at like what happened locally here, right? So let's just look at this range here. So let's go ahead and let's start with the daily, and let's look at that swing down range and see what it looks like. We'll zoom in here on it. All right, so here's a high that created this low. So what you want to see is you want to see a high retest, but then a hold of the low range. So the low range held, continuation pop off achievement. So now we're looking for like a weekly retest, and you can see the weekly retest is up here, the high that created the low. And in the previous weekly retest, you can see that we actually did the exact same thing here, and we actually swung it and came down all the way down to the low range, achieved to the high range, broke back into the mother candle of the structure, you can basically say, because this is basically origin of the structure right here. Not every time, Spidey. So basically, you can have multiple things. You can have achievement to achievement, failure to achieve. The one thing you want to see after achievement occurs, like here, is you want to see a hold. So basically, when we look at like this structure here, right? Let's clear this up a bit so we can figure out what we're talking about. So we're looking at the weekly. We can kind of see here that this is the low that created this high, right? So if we come in on like the 4 hour and we zoom in on this area, the highest point was here, right? And the low that created this point was basically around here. So as you can see, price. This is just on the 4 hour, by the way, and like in crypto, it's a little bit more fluid, but in here, so you can see that the 4 hour actually flipped. So then now we want to see the daily, because when I say it flipped, I mean the resistance turned to support, right? Or support turned into resistance. So we can see on the daily what was the low that created the high. It was actually over here that created this high range. So on this low here, what was the daily move that caused the big breakdown? It was actually right here. So technically, there is a origin play short that could happen here. So if you were in longs, right? Let's say from down here on the retest, then if you're day trading silver or gold, I'd recommend silver and gold a lot of times is an asset that you can kind of, it's a lower risk asset where you can throw some capital in. You don't have to necessarily day trade it, and you're looking more for like yearly gains and things like that. But if you're just scalping it, I mean, there's some scalps to be had here. Like let's just look since September, right? 13%, a nice little 10%er on the short, and then now we have, this one. The trade that I always like to take is this one right here, because when we look at the lowest point and we do our like progressive fib pull, you can see that you know from the 0.618, we had that nice deep retest again. So it's just the same play playing out twice. It's basically a liquidity to liquidity move. So what you're having here is a swing of highs, liquidity move, then a attempt of lows, and I think it might have, like, we can check it here now. Let's see. The low range was 21,410, and the low range on this one was 21,410. So literally the exact point. So any liquidity, if there was a stop loss at 21,410, it probably got hit. So it's just basically a stop loss hunt for shorts, and then dumping it, and then a stop loss. It's just a liquidity grab, right? Trying to grab the liquidity of shorts and then grab the liquidity of longs. Because if we see what happened here, you can see that there was a short play that played out, but maybe people got a little greedy and didn't take profits, and then didn't manage their trades correctly, and then you can see that this liquidity got grabbed, stopped out, and then from here they needed to retest to grab some of the long liquidity. One of the things I always would recommend is looking at the supply and demand zones. So when we're looking at this range, and we figure out, okay, where's achievement happened locally in the last 3 months. We want to identify where's, and the thing is they can be an inverse as well. So this is the high range, right? And then this is the low range. Now, something I want to help you guys realize is all of this can be easily seen on the mother candle move. So the mother candle move that brought us down to this range is this. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to look at, okay, so this is the high range. What's the low that created this range? So boom, this is where we want to look at this as a potential supplier demand zone. And then now let's look at the low range twister. So now the low range twister is now the supply and demand zone for the opposite end. So you can see that what you call this is accumulation, manipulation move to get the stops, and then right back into the premium buy range and then pop off. You see this happen all the time. So here's your premium buy range, manipulation move, get some stops, back into it. Then here's the clean retest where we pop off. All right, so Tesla, let's go ahead and take a gander at Tesla. So I was looking for this level here or this level here on the short. The day that Elon tweeted about him selling shares, I actually took some nice little puts. They played out pretty nicely. These were the two levels I was looking to hold, basically just based off this. And obviously, Tesla is a really strong stock, so it held pretty nicely, held the upper range. When we look at it from this aspect, right now it's kind of holding this point of failure pretty nicely. Had two nice high retests, deep range, low range moves. Based off of this, because remember what we talk about, right? What's the thing we want to look for? Origin, swing test, point of failure, right? So for longs, what do we want to see happen? We want to see this hold. So since this failed to hold, what are we looking for? Continuation to the downside. What's the origin? So now origin is the play. So this exact blue line that we had is the probability move. I'm not saying it's 100%. I'm just saying it's probability. Because you can see on the last daily here what happened. We had this nice high retest of this range that we wanted to break back into and hold as support for the bullish side. And now we had the swing of lows, right? And this is Wednesday. So I'm interested to see, okay, so this is Wednesday. This is so it's look back, and this is Friday, this is Thursday. So Thursday's open was down here, and Friday's close was beneath Thursday's, right? So a lot of times then, that gives you oh yeah, market wasn't even open on Monday because of MLK Day, but so here's Tuesday, you can see. So that's one of the things I always like to do, guys, is if the Thursday's open is beneath Friday's close, then a lot of times the next week I'm looking for shorts and puts. But it's basically just based off price action as well. That's just another tool that I use. Maybe that'll help you guys. But like as an example, if you could look back at other times, and I challenge you guys to backtest that strategy. It's pretty nice. But yeah, this is what I'd be looking for here. Shorts down to here. At the lowest, I would expect a swing of this. I'm saying at the least. So, kind of already played out. See what type of move this is. It's like you see how we had the high range retest here, the low range retest. That's very clean price action. So, yeah, nice little 7%er. The thing is you have to be careful, right? When shorting these top stocks because of the amount of volume they have. So one of the indicators we can look at is volume dying down. It's actually increasing in a little bit of a way because if we look at the average here, like on the dailies, when we were in a bull market, like when the market was actually increasing, we actually have a more higher average volume right now than we do, and we have an earnings report coming up. This earnings report was, I guess, pretty good. Surprise. Revenue is a little bit low. But yeah, for me, guys, whenever it comes to what matters the most, it's all price action, all price action. So any event that could come up, anything like that, I just trade the price action, and then let the events and the news and all of that, be the reason why the price action played out. So, because before this earnings report on the, what day is it? On the 26th. So we have a week. We could easily come down and have a deep range retest of this origin move here, right? So like I said, if we want to look at this more clearly now, I actually want to leave those levels here, but so there's your high range retest. So this is where I would look for potential longs right here as like the premium demand zone, and we might see a nice little swing and might even come lower. Worst case scenario, I'd probably see us coming down to here, 800, but 900, and then where I'm looking for potentially long, seeing how price reacts, is right here between 960 and 930. Dallas, we'll go ahead and look at Bitcoin a little bit later on. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it more traditional markets for now, but so that's what I'm seeing for Tesla, guys. Very clear invalidation. Like if we want to look on lower time frames, I would put your invalidation like somewhere like right here, because since we've already achieved, remember, what do we want to see now? With achievement, we want to see a hold. So you don't want to see like this low range that caused this high swing here really get like the close and the open get tested. So yeah, looking for low range continuation now. Very clear on that. All right, so Amazon, that was the next one I saw in chat here. Guys, if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to ask. I'm here to answer all of y'all's questions. Ooh, Amazon's looking real interesting. So Amazon actually is showing more signs of weakness than Tesla, because it's already been showing point of failure weakness for a long time. And this is something to notice here, guys, is this is the real serious point that matters right here. Because notice, okay, so here's your mother candle failure that came down. So I want you guys to see that every time we swung, what happened? Right back into mother candle. Swung 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 right back into mother candle. You see that? And then now right back into mother candle again. So a lot of times that is a sign of major weakness. And the fact that it's been going on now for since July, so like 6 months now, is a pretty big sign of weakness. So let's keep it simple, right? Let's not overcomplicate it. Let's look at the last high swing move. Let's follow the path. Swing high, swing low, point of failure, right? So for the uptrend scenario, what do we want to see happen? We want to see this be achieved, and we want to see this hold. Boom, failure, retest, failure. So now the high range retest, right here. Low range retest, right here. Continuation of the downside. Now we're seeing achievement locally, right? So now we come back into the mother candle. So let's look back into the mother candle now. What do we see on the mother candle, guys? So what's our, this is our origin down here, right? Origin. Here's our swing. And even though we like kind of, did this, it's still part of the swing. And then there's our point of failure. So within the mother candle, what I would be really looking at is I'd love to see this range down here. Swing all this 6-7 months of liquidity. As an institution, as an institutional mindset and like things like that, I would definitely look for a swing of this liquidity. Did we swing it here? No, we did not. So the only thing to look at here for the uptrend scenario, which is showing, because like let's look at the weekly here, right? You can see that we printed a nice, beautiful doji with a green close on the actual candle. So we're looking at this deep retest of this range here, and then how this looks here. If this holds right here, there is a long in play currently. And as we know, we looked at this right here, right? So let's go ahead and um, get our key ranges that we need here. So price action that happened most recently matters more than price action that happened here. But this still has value, remember, like I said. So this is the point of failure. Here's the high range retest, and then there's the point of failure here. So if this is confusing to you guys, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Origin, swing, point of failure, right? So if on this larger frame move, if we can hold this right here, there is a long to be had here, but I would do very tight invalidation. because as you can see right now, what is the trend since November 15th? It is down. So the trend that happened the most locally matters the most. So if we just go back 3 to 6 tickers on the weekly or candlesticks, 1, 2, 3, you can see 4, 5, 6 that we are in a downtrend. The thing is the trend that matters the most is the long term though. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a nice little pullback up here, especially with how bullish Amazon's been. A lot of times when supply chain issues and things like that, it normally takes a year, 2 years for it to hit. We are in like a top aspect, with this whole pandemic and a lot of other things happening with logistic aspects. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to see a swing of this, in my opinion. But again, that's looking more out like higher time frames. So let's just zoom in now and let's look at lower time frames. So remember, we said that there is a long to be had right here, right? So I love volume statistics. So here we can see that there was massive volume. The highest volume we've seen was in this candlestick right here. Secondary highest volume we saw was here, and we actually closed beneath it. So that means this is a huge point of indecision right now. So basically what this means is that if we're looking at the two key ranges where there's high liquidity, this high range here and this low range here essentially. So whatever breaks first, you can expect some sort of like nice little impulsive break. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's see on the daily what Amazon looks like. If we potentially saw a high range retest on the daily, so something like of this nature here, boom, and then from there maybe a retest of this position, and if we can achieve this high range and then hold as support, then continuation of the upside, right? So there's that path, but um, then there's also the path of the high range retest back to the low range, failure to achieve, used as resistance again, and then break down to the downside. Because remember, locally, if we're just looking for the trend and we want to trade with trend, we are in a downtrend. So what you should be looking for local scalp trade setups, not for your macro larger margin buys where you're like, okay, I'm buying Amazon and I'm looking for that monthly, quarterly, yearly dip. That's different. That's a different trade than what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a daily trade setup. This is something that I see as the highest probable move, in my opinion. But like I said, for the uptrend scenario, you want to see this, and then a reachievement of this, and then there, something like that. But regardless, I think that we might see a high range retest tomorrow. Let's see what type of percentage move that is. 2%, not bad. I actually normally also I don't like to put yeah, that is true. And see, like the thing is, I would really like to see this continue to break down and at least test this origin before earnings. Yeah, the previous earnings was negative on this. But notice, even though the earnings report was negative, I want y'all to notice that price action still held. We still came to the point of failure. So here, this is something that might help you guys a lot when identifying where you want to enter. So let's go ahead and look at this structure here because we're going to imagine that we're here, right? And we want to decide where I want to short this because the earnings report was negative, correct? So, we're looking here at this range because this is the price action that we had before this attempt here, right? So let's go ahead and zoom in here now on that little green box that I just identified. So we're going to go ahead and invert the scale, zoom in nice and big. All righty. I actually prefer to look at it this way. But here's the low that created the high, right? Very small too. And then we want to identify what was the high range that caused us to lose this. It was right here. So now this is what you would call point of failure. This is now what you would call origin. Okay? Super simple. So now that was on the 15-minute, but now we scroll over to the right. Look at that. Origin retest, held point of failure, Nice little short play. So there's your, correct way to do entries. Now, institutions, what they probably were doing is they were probably taking this whole range here, and then they were okay with this drawback, this liquidity move, and then they probably entered heavy right here to get their averages down, and then then on this nice little retest after achievement, then popped it off. Then obviously, institutions, they're not greedy. They're taking profits on every move up or down, depending on which direction they're doing. Because as you can see here, when we identify we talk about identifying the demand range to the supply range. So we want to take, let's look at a little bit of a higher time frame here. We want to look at the origin candle that got us to this point. So this one over here. So we want to see, okay, where's the demand range on this? At the origin point of failure is right here. So even though, like you can see when we swung it the first time, we popped back up to the supply range. So the supply range would be this twister right here. So this twister mentality is kind of like an old school trading mentality. It's just showing high liquidity zones. So there's your demand zone, there's your supply zone, and inversion. So you can take shorts to here, longs to here, and it is inverted, so it can be confusing. But you can see that then when we tested the point of failure again, we broke down into it. So on a macro standpoint, and the fact that we are in a short aspect, I would be looking for this. Even if we have a very solid earnings report, I still would be looking for this low range. Because let's say we consider this the demand range, we might see something like we saw here, right here. So we swing down and then pop up. Or this, I'm saying this might start to be the accumulation range. But I would like to see an origin retest, at least. But think about it this way: if the institutions want price to get to a certain spot, they want it to get to it and then hold in this area for a long period of time, because then they can push and get that liquidity grab. As you can see, how long did we really stay here? 1 day, 2 day dump. On the third day dump. So it's the same thing on each one of these liquidity grabs. You're going to see that it's just 1 day, 2 day pump, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day pump. You see what I'm saying? So you want to see how you want to see quick price reaction to these ranges. But like I said, I would not be surprised. Like if you ask me, so when are you interested in buying Amazon heavy for your long term bags under 2,900? It doesn't mean it will happen. I'm just that would be an alert that I would look for Amazon. All right, let me see. Is there any other? A lot of analysts are upgrading Amazon. Yeah, I mean Amazon's a solid company, dude. Isn't it like the top, basically one of the top market cap assets that exists? So I mean, imagine trying to go against the top dog. It's not normally a thing that's going to work out in your favor, but it doesn't mean very locally you couldn't have some sort of low range retest. I mean, look at it. We've already been doing it for 6 months. All right, let's look at Google now. Higher time frame first. Yeah, there was a nice short on Google here. So where did we retest? We retested this right here. Held origin. Had a nice weekly close. But as I want y'all to notice, let's just look at this high range, right? What have we talked about all day today in the stream? Right? Point of failure. Let's go ahead and take this high range, take the low range. So for a bullish scenario, what do we want to see happen? We want to see the high range hold. Then we want to see the low range or the high range break the low range hold. And we actually broke down, even though we did close within it. Is that a sign of weakness or strength? Guys, when you're looking for on price action reasons, should I get in? You want to make a list, weakness or strengths, right? And then this is definitely a sign of weakness. Now, it's not like extreme weakness because we closed back within on the weekly. Then let's check out the daily. And you can see, okay, yeah, we didn't even have a single daily where we closed beneath it. Well, we did here actually. So remember we talk about the high range retest, and then now what do we think could happen here? Maybe a bit of a low range retest. And then what happens after that? Origin, right? So the origin range you can see here is a nice little twister. So this is like a demand range. So what you want to look for here is you want to see when it hits this demand range, are we going to use this as a resistance? And this is what you can kind of call point of control. So on the origin move, right? The origin move here, origin, because we did have some weakness held, but then we had a hold, right? So then this is our origin range. Here's our swing test range. There's our point of failure. Now the reason why this is point of failure and not this is even though we swung this, what happened to price right after? Right back into the mother candle point of failure. See that? Then yes, we did swing it again, but where are we again? Right in the point of failure. So when we look at the original point of failure, and now we had a close on the weekly beneath the point of failure. So now we're seeing another notch in the weakness area, right? When we talk about notches in the weakness area and the reasons why in your trading journals and things, you should be writing these down. If you can identify things in this, because then what ends up happening is you have a list, right? And obviously we don't want to be biased to any direction. So you want to actually look actively for strength reasons as well, right? Which there are many reasons that could happen for strength reasons. I mean, like for instance, it is considered a strength, but I wouldn't consider it super strength. Is the fact that we closed, within this swing range here that caused this high on the weekly. So that would be like, I wouldn't necessarily consider that a weakness or a strength. Yeah, I agree with you. The thing is I'm telling you, with stocks, it's shorts don't normally play out as well, but I feel like this is the one time where we might start to see some sort of low retest now on these stocks. Because like, when's the last time that happened, right? I mean, really, the last time that happened was that March dip. You know what I'm saying? And then from then on, it just had nice little shallow retests, and then all the way up. So the March April range, we might see like this might be the setup for like the March dip. And then what would be origin? So, right here. So this would be like the super high demand for buy zone. Because right now we're at point of failure when it comes to what created this top range here. But now let's zoom in, like we do with all of these. So let's zoom in now and let's look more locally. Let's go ahead. And just to make it, we've talked about this enough. I'm gonna go ahead and remove everything. Okay. So remove everything. Let's just look real locally, not get finessed in any way. Go ahead and look at the daily actually closely. Okay, so we know this is a big point of failure here on this side. Here's your point of failure on the downside right here. So failure to failure test. Let's see where we got some high range retests. Here's a high that created a low. So we did achieve the high. We have now swung the high that created the low, and now we're using it as a resistance. So this is Wednesday. I would like to see the Thursday close and open, but here is, in my opinion, is a decent short entry range. And then, what type of target would we look for? Say we get the middle of this right there, just a swing of that low. We did already do it once here, so you got to be careful. Let me see. There is a long to be had here. Let's see on the lower time frames now. 4 hour. Let's even look at the hourly. All right. So you can see this little gap here, but basically here's the high that created the low. We achieved. So now what do we want to see happen? A hold. The hold did happen. We held the thing. We popped off. So now if this is origin and this is the swing test, right? So we want to see this hold. and we want to see this achieved. So you can see that for the bullish scenario, we need to achieve this. And that makes a lot of sense too in this, you know, formation of stuff here, because if we were to flip and we look at it from this origin, you know, nice little swing test, and then like a point of failure right here locally. So it does jive pretty well. But yeah, I would look for this range right here. So this is kind of your point of control locally if you wanted to look for lower time frame trade ideas. So like if you were taking a long from this low range here, have a very tight invalidation like there. And then if you wanted to take a short, same thing. Short here, have an invalidation, very tight, slightly above. For the uptrend scenario, let's see on the hourly here. This was a high range that created this low range. We have a nice little gap. Massive volume right here, by the way. Something I always like to look at. So how much percentage have we gotten off that? Like a 1%er? Nothing really, too much. So yeah, this is the point of control, guys. 270, 2770 kind of is the resistance, and 2740 as the support on Google. And understand that if the support then turns resistance, then that's a short signal. So just keep that in mind. We're right at it right now. So I'm interested to see how the daily closes today. So like if we close within the range, I'd be potentially more inclined to take a short, or I mean a long. I like to see within like the 4 hour. Okay, so we had one close above. If we can get 2 or 3 closes, so this 4 hour closes in an hour and 20 minutes, basically at market close. So then the hourly open on Thursday, or the first 4 hours, seeing on where we open and close, I could see a long to be had here, like from the low range to the high range. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Just kind of speaking here about what I'm seeing. Look at much lower time frames. Kind of want to look at like what the so it's just showing the London open and close on this indicator right now. It's actually just showing the close. I'm just gonna hide this. All right. Is there any other tickers y'all want me to look at? We can look at any of the indexes. Let me see if I miss anything. I think somebody said XM. Okay, we can look at XM. Sheesh. So catching this is just a knife catch. We already looked at Tesla earlier. You can look at the VOD MC and the Twitch and to see it there. But yeah, this is just an absolute knife catch right now. There isn't any sign of strength. What I would for the any long play, what I would look for here is like basically a swing high retest. If anything, I would not hold on to it, even if there is some strength, or I would at least take massive profits, 50 to 60%. So what type of move is that on this bad boy? This thing just looks like it's going to shit. Let's see on the 4 hour here. See, we're not even getting volume. Last time we had volume was up here, and even though it closed green, it obviously was short volume. All right, we can look at Microsoft. Okay, so Microsoft played out beautifully. I actually was looking for a deeper retest here and didn't get it, but we popped through the upper range, and then this would have probably been the nice entry right here. Or if you could have gotten this, but it looks like this was on the daily open with the gap. So we had a nice pop off to the upside. Let's go ahead like we do on all these. Let's look at the higher time frame. Let's go ahead and just remove everything here. So we're seeing some nice volume on the weekly here. Volume's actually been trending downwards, but this was the March volume, yeah. Yeah, it's not really been trending downwards actually. This looks like this is sell volume though. Let's go on the daily. So here's your point of control on Microsoft. So we did swing it barely here. Here's like your high range that created the low. Well, it's actually here. So we actually did achieve the high that created the low here just on the daily time frame. And it looks like we're gonna get a downside close. So the thing is here you could have considered this as a signal of a low range test after the high range test, right? But what I want you to identify here is when we look on like the hourly or the 4 hour, I like the 4 hour more myself. I like to get 3 4 hours beneath the point of control before I take a short. If I'm looking for if the setup I'm looking for is the low range test. So you can see that we had 1, 2. Now looking for it now in the open, boom, we popped up. Actually, that wasn't the open, but yeah, you can see that we did pop up. So yeah, you just want to see multiple 3 hours, 3 4 hours is like something that I like to look for on this. But I think this is also, if I just had to take a guess here, because volume is not really increasing. I mean, it is in a way. So at this high range, then it started increasing down here. See, we know that this is a key monthly level here, resistance, right? When we looked at the monthly. So the question is what level do we test next? If this ends up breaking down to the downside, I'd look for this right here, which would make sense on the low range. You see that? Because we've already tested this, and this is where volume. There was some buying happening here. A nice scalp setup from this low range origin. Got a nice 5%er here. But see, the thing is what you want to see is with achievement, because this was a high that created the low. We achieved. What do we want to see? We want to see a hold. We failed to hold. So now supposed support is now turned resistance. So probability based, especially if we get a couple 4 hours off of this retest, 1, 2 beneath, then 3, it's a short signal because we might get a nice potentially one more. So I like to see it for short setups. And then you have this point of control, which would be really nice for potential short here. And you guys, you have to be able to take stops. So the 3 questions you always want to ask yourself is why am I entering a trade? Right? If you can do this based off logic, numbers, price action reasons, that's exactly what you want. What am I willing to lose? That's the second thing. So what am I willing to lose? And it's not just saying this is what my stop loss would be. It's saying this is you're accepting this loss before you even take the trade. So there's no emotion. You just put your trading plan in and you accept it, right? So if I was taking a short here, I would probably look for, and I really love that twister there, by the way. I love these like random twisters here. It's somewhere like, around here, like right above this high range. So if I had already taken a short, but remember, I like to look for 3 4 hours before I take it. So right now we've had 1 4 hour, two, and then we'll see where the third one is tomorrow on the open. But yeah, I think this would be a very valid short, because for shorts, you really don't want to see this swung. And if it does swing it, you might, sometimes you just get unlucky and you get stopped out, and it might even just dump right after if you just barely swing that, right? Because the we remember when we identified, okay, so what happened with this achievement? Because we achieved this high, we want to see a hold. So this is basically the range that we want to see hold, which is like right here. And right now, is it holding? No, it's actually being used as a resistance. Does that make sense? Because with achievement, we want to see a hold. Very simple. And guys, this is just probability based. So when I say probability based, 55, 65%, doesn't mean that it always works out, right? I mean, there's always outlier things, especially in traditional markets, you know, things that could occur. But price action wise is telling us 55% that this is a resistance and that we're going to swing these lows. Especially since the local trend, we're trading with trend locally, right? Down. We'd had achievement to the downside. Okay, with achievement to the downside, did we see a hold? Yes, we did. Okay, then we even achieved more. So what actually needed to hold, right? Let's invert the chart and let's look at it from the opposite perspective. Okay, so this is what we achieved. This is what we needed to hold, the low that created the high. Did we hold the low that created the high? Yes, we did. And you can see that the low that created the high here, that was that nice, beautiful short reentry there. Support turned resistance, right? Because on the opposite end, this is a support that caused a swing of high. Now support turned resistance, continuation to the downside. So it's the same thing that we're looking for here. Low that created the high, support turned resistance, continuation to the downside, right? So let's just say hypothetically, right? Because we did see achievement, we don't see the hold, right? And we come down and we test the lows and we have a failure to achieve on the downside. Well, then in that case, a failure to achieve, there could be a potential retest of highs. So then if we see a failure to failure, then that's very likely the swing of lows. But then if we see a failure to achieve, but then we achieve to the upside, then now that's a very strong strength signal for a reversal. So once you guys, I'm going to be streaming a lot more often here on Xtrades. So once you guys get to understand some of the terms that I'm using and everything based off price action, as well on the Academy on Xtrades, with Amy, we have been doing, we did the fundamentals of a trader course, and that is for all premium members. Um, we still will be doing some, Discord streams for just the monthly members sometimes, and then obviously these Twitch streams for everybody. But for the premium members, we do have an academy course where we teach, all the aspects of a trader. So basically, the 6 lesson course was fundamentals of risk analysis, fundamentals of technical analysis, fundamentals of trend analysis, fundamentals of price action, fundamentals of emotional analysis, and then fundamentals of marketing, which is basically fundamental reasons, such as potentially earnings, the team behind these corporations. Are they considered? We talked about it in the lesson, but I love the fundamental lesson because we talk about the 4 sectors, right? We have the dead dog. Any marketing majors here. Then you have the rising stars. You have the cash cows. You have like the question mark markets. So just being able to identify and understand all that knowledge fundamentally is really nice. That's the first lesson. Then we'll be coming out with the price action lesson, and then actually a whole lesson just on emotional analysis. So yeah, guys, I hope you guys liked the stream today. I appreciate you guys all hanging out and everything. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and pick 3 more tickers before I end today's stream. But that normally the time's about an hour. So we'll see. We got um, Rut, SOXL. So Cup of Magic, you did ask for a bunch there. So if there's anybody else that wants one, please feel free to ask. We'll go ahead and just go down your list while we wait. Q. Invesco, is that the one you're wanting, man? think that's the one you're wanting, I would imagine. Yeah. Origin, swing test area here. So locally, origin retest looks very probable. We got one daily close beneath it. Secondary daily close, third daily close is an absolute short right here. So I'd take shorts on the next daily here. And remember, it can get invalidated, but we see the high range retest. We did actually swing it a little bit. Now remember, with achievement, what do we want to see? A hold, failure to hold. Boom. Then you can see there was a high range retest, so the support turned resistance. Now we're having our low range retest. Volume is even dying down today. So it looks like there is a short in play here. All right, I'm just going down the list, guys. The next one on the list is URNM. I'll try to just do some fire analysis here, practice my institutional trading aspects here. So I'll just try to get through a bunch of tickers as quick as possible. So boom. See the daily here. Same, this looks very similar. The low range would be about here. Actually, don't even need to have that line, but there's your high range. You can see, here's your point of control, right? And you can see that now we're on the low range. So the same thing. Daily close beneath this level. On the third daily, we take a short. So I don't know what your trading strategy is when it comes to how you take profits, but one that I would always recommend is a 2% move. So let's say you took this short from here. Literally 2% would just be the swing, right? So what I always like to do is I like to take profits very quickly and always leave a moon back. So yeah, I would look for a short on this. Let me just verify that really quickly before I move on. Is there a long to be had here? Is the question I'm asking myself right now. Okay, so we did just have local achievement to the downside. The daily volume looks absolutely dog crap right here. Doesn't mean that we're gonna have an impulse breakdown, but I do think that we will see lower here. The high range retest would be up here. It's not out of the question that we could come here because really this is the higher probability better area to short right here than it is at the lower range. So if you do take this lower range short, what I would recommend doing is having a tight stop. So right above this previous daily here is where I would have the stop for the slow range, and then if you decide you want to take the short again, there's there. And then for the long scenario, basically you just want to see 3-4 hours above this range here. So let's see, did we have any 4 hours above that low range? We did have one. So in 1 hour, if we can close above, that's two. So if we get a third one, there is a long to be had here. R&R wise and risk to reward wise, there's a potential. All right, look at XM now. Oh, we kind of already looked at this one, didn't we? Yeah. LMT. I like to see that. Some buying going on. Looks nice. Let's see. Dang, this one's absolutely savage with the volume. Golly. Look at that volume there. It's like there's no movement. That's ridiculous. Just looking back a bit here. Look at that deep retest. Man, what day was this? Oh, that was the March dip. All right, so let's just look from this March dip, swing test, point of failure. So we held the low range swing test, point of failure short, low range swing test again. We did achieve to the high range. I'm looking for longs now. I'm longing this bad boy. We have now achieved, so I want to see a hold. So this is your invalidation right here for longs. The question is okay, so we just now saw the achievement, right? So with achievement, we could very well come down and we want to see this hold. So on the daily, the hold range that I would like to see and where I would be looking to take a long here is right here at this twister. So what type of invalidation is that? So 1.3, 1.27. So the closer you can get, the better. You know, potentially look for your first TP at like 2%. So if you take this trade, 2% TP, so that'd be like a 1.5 RR. And then the original point of failure trade, right? But if we're looking at the next PT range after the 2%, I would say something like that, 385. And then the high range point of failure, and then the origin point of failure that we identified here. And then from there, just moonbags. So, I mean, that's a nice trade setup, right? That's an 8%. And then from there, just moonbags and see how high we can go. But this looks good. This looks really good locally. We see the increase of volume. We see price achieved locally. We achieved the weekly high that created the low. It's a really nice sign. So yeah, this one looks really good. All right, guys, that's all the time I have today. Thank you guys very much for hanging out. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will, next week, look for my announcements in the Xtrades. I'll be announcing any streamers and their schedule that will be on Twitch or in the Discord. And then also just look at the events tab, guys. Besides, just looking at the announcement, the events tab is like the new place to look to for any events. All right, I think 007 stream is like in an hour. He's going to be going over the earnings reports and all that, so that'd be a cool thing to tune into. Probably check that out myself. Have a good rest of your day, guys. Protect your money at all times. See y'all later.